So, George, are you one for getting a flu shot or not?
No, I just don't get flu shots.
Okay, and that's because...
That's because I believe in my own immune system, and the strands are so wide and varied, it just seems pointless thinking that the vaccine is going to really cover what the threat really is. And if I live a healthy lifestyle and my immune system's up, then I've got to back myself against nature, Joe.
That's fair enough. And for somebody like yourself, who is fit, well and healthy, doesn't have any other medical issues or problems, there really has never been any evidence that shows that getting a flu shot makes a difference. For people who have particularly chronic lung disease or those who are elderly, they're in a different situation. But what's interesting, George, over the last probably 10 to 20 years has been this change in how the flu is presented. It's generally regarded that influenza, look, you got the flu in winter, it's not pleasant, but you get better after a week, which indeed for the vast majority of people that you do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't this fearsome, terrible thing that everybody had to be protected against. Somehow it's morphed into this killer. And that if every year is going to be the worst flu season, it's almost like there's going to be, dead bodies in the streets. We're going back to the bubonic plague. Probably the most famous example of that was 2009 with the swine flu, and there were predictions of millions of deaths. Each year in Australia, there are somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 people who do die in relation to influenza, but 98.5 or so % of those people are aged over the age of 85, and it's due to secondary pneumonia.
Okay.
So it's not due to the flu per se. There are some sporadic cases of people who, for reasons that we don't understand, get this really severe dose of it, and that cannot be predicted. We don't know why it happens. There are a handful of cases each year. They are quite tragic.
Are you saying that we really don't know, which means, is it a certain virus?
Yeah.
There's a lot for us to learn, really.
And every year the flu vaccine contains, used to be 3, it's now 4 strains. There are dozens and dozens of strains, and there are also a lot of flu-like illnesses that are not the flu. And then we get a lot of people who have a bit of a cough and a sore throat and say, I've got the flu, and in fact they haven't, because that's a cold type illness. Some researchers in the UK suggested that roughly only 1 in 6 people who have flu-like symptoms, so we're talking about aches and pains, headache, tired, muscle soreness, loss of energy, loss of appetite, as against the cough, runny nose, sore throat. Only about 1 in 6 of those people actually probably have influenza. So it's been estimated that we might need to vaccinate something like in excess of 1,000 people, perhaps, to reduce 1 case of the flu. And when you consider that the most people, again with exceptions, but for most people, if they're going to get the flu and they're going to get better in about a week, then what the hey? The other thing that's really interesting is that most years the usefulness of the flu vaccine is around about 50%. So we, in the Southern Hemisphere, we follow the northern winter, and they do a match, and look, they do their best. So they think, we think these are the dominant strains for this season. It's a prediction, it's a bit like predicting the weather. And then they can do an assessment at the end of that season and say, well, how did we go?
50,
and it ranges
50.
from about 20 to 60 something, and most years it's about 50. Now, the other thing I think is really important to say, what we're talking about here, is that this is not talking about being pro or anti-vax. So before anybody sort of, gets hot under the collar out there, that's not what we're talking about. Just want to be very, very, very clear, because people take these things the wrong way. What we're talking about is the usefulness or otherwise of one specific vaccine, not in general.
Yeah.
So really, I suppose the thing is twofold, George. Number one, people have to make their own decisions, and it's entirely reasonable for people to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
For those people who are otherwise fit, well, healthy, looking after themselves, who have a strong immune system, then yes, that will give you protection against flu-like illnesses and a whole range of other viruses. It's never a force field. You can never say that, no, you can't get sick in winter or at any time. It may well happen. But a strong functioning immune system is your best protection against a variety of illnesses.
Joe, I wonder whether the influence has also been around maybe the pharmaceutical companies who have these vaccines, targeted corporations who lose a lot of productivity when people get the flu. Because I remember the pressure on me getting the flu jabs was coming from my employer. So
Yep.
I wonder whether there has been that angle of, you're going to make more money if you keep people away from the flu.
There has been mythology that somehow if employers get all their workforce to have the flu shot, that they won't get sick over winter. And for all the reasons we spoke about before, you may well still get sick in winter.
Well, I did. A long time ago when I got jabbed, I got sick. So I thought, well, what's going on here? What's the point?
So the bottom line really is for people just to make their own decisions and not be forced one way or the other.
We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like Healthy Minded, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and share with your friends. Please put comments below whether you agree, disagree, if you've got topics you'd like for the future. And until next time, stay healthy minded.